Hello, so this video will cover what's considered active scanning. We're going to scan and show how to use Nmap. Nmap is a network mapper, and we're going to use it to scan a target and kind of get information about it. Try to get information we can use to assess the target. So let's take a look at the tool. So first off, if you just type Nmap and hit enter, it'll give you some general information about Nmap. Just all the major switches you can use within Nmap, different scanning techniques, and what you're really manipulating with Nmap is the TCP flags. So if you look at a TCP header, what you're really manipulating with Nmap is the TCP headers to find out exactly how the target or whatever you're trying to assess it responds to it. So if I give it a general, just a straight Nmap command, you'll get the output of what options you have. So let's go ahead and scan a target. So I'm going to clear my screen. They say Nmap 172.21.44.5. Now this is a target that I've set up that I'm going to scan. Now by default, if I just type this, this will only scan the top 1,000 well-known 1,000 ports that are very common. And I just want to make sure I get the right IP address, 72.21.44.5. I scan that target, and this target comes back and says I have an FTP port, SSH port, all these ports that are serving up services that I can investigate further. Now, I like to know how it tested that, so one thing you could do is using that same command is I can do -- reason to tell me how it tried to handshake with it. And it says it did a SYN ACK. So it sent a synchronous TCP flag and it received an ACK back, which means it did not get a reset. A reset would mean the port was closed. So it came back with an ACK, which means the port was open. So it didn't do what we call a full three-way handshake where it tried to do a connection, which you can do by just basically putting in switches. So one of the switches you can use is a connect scan, which means I want to do a full handshake with you. Okay, I want you to do SYNS and ACK. So other than just a half connection, I'm going to run a full connection to make sure you're there. And lo and behold, it comes back fine. And they say, well, that's all well and good. So I know these ports are open, but these are only 1,000 ports. So this is only 1,000 ports that it chooses, that it knows of. That's not all the ports. So we have 65,535 ports to choose from, and we'd like to know a little bit more. So we want to do all the ports. Now there's two ways to do that. You can do it simply by saying -p-, and it will do all the ports, or you can specify the ports. You could say 1 through 65,535. You can specify any kind of port you want. Now one thing Nmap does add is, because this could take a while, we could put some timing behind it. So what we can do is, with this command, we can do something like anywhere from a very slow scan, which would be T0, which would take one SYN sent every hour, which is a paranoid mode, to a very fast scan, which we call insane mode, which is T5. If you look at the documentation, you can do either T5 or T space insane. You could just put the word insane, it understands. This is just to speed up the process, because it takes a while to scan 65,535. So let's go ahead and do all the ports. And while it's scanning, it went pretty quickly. It came back pretty quickly and gave us the answer. It says some ports were refused, meaning that they are on reset, meaning that they weren't open. So we can see that now we have a thorough report as to what was going on. These are the only open ports. Now another thing you can do with it to add to more of the fun is I can leave the port to scan everything, leave it on there. But I like to know what versions of software are running on this. I won't need a full connect scan, not necessary. So I'm just going to do a normal scan. I'm going to do it at T5 speed. I'm still going to cover all the ports, but I want to do a version scan. What a version scan does is identifies what versions of software, based on a little database it has, are running on those ports, and those ports are what are open to the world. Now this could take a little while, but with the T5 it does speed it up. If you want to know how fast it's running, just hit the space bar. It shows you it's about 33% complete. It takes a few seconds, almost done, and boom, it comes back and says, hey, these are what's running on those ports, which is useful because we use this information to then go look up vulnerabilities or potential vulnerabilities that are being exposed out there that somebody on the outside can see by using the same tool. So Nmap has many different ways of scanning. It is not limited to just what I just did. You can deploy decoys, pretend that you are somebody else. You can do a very fast scan without using the T5, which is very simple to do. I'll just clear the screen. You say Nmap and just give me the top 100 ports you find, okay, at the same target. So this will only give me the top 100 ports. And notice compared to the other scan, it missed port 5000, whatever that was on the end. It only took 100 popular ports it knew of. Okay. So the way you use the tool is, depending on the options you give it, it can vary your output quite a bit. So the important part of the lesson is to learn when you're scanning something is to get as much information of the target as you can, because there is no firewall sitting right here, so I didn't deploy a decoy. But there may be a firewall there. There could be any number of things that are in the way, and I could pretend to be somebody else when I scan this target. But it's just a way of making sure there's a way to cloak yourself, basically, to make sure that when you scan, that I have to do sudo, only because I am not running as root. Sorry about that. There we go. I do sudo, and I'm basically, what the target saw was 192.168.1.4 coming at it. It did not see me coming at it. It saw another target. And I can still do the same scan, but I can pretend to be somebody else, so that if there is a firewall or IDS there, I can try to avoid it, or avoid it detecting my true IP address. So this is a very short lesson on Nmap, and you can also do things like trying to thwart things by using other scans. Other than a standard TCP scan, you can also do UDP scans, and I'm going to do this one. Takes quite a while, so that's why I'm going to use a T5. I do an SU for the other side. There are ports that you won't get with a TCP scan. These are UDP ports, and we can do that same target. Let me get the target right. So I'm going to do the same target. I'm going to remove the F. I'm not going to do a decoy. I'm just going to scan it out like so. And I'm going to need to add a time on there so it goes rather fast. Otherwise, this could take a while. And let it scan the target. But I'm looking for UDP ports. Okay, so notice it's running 53, which is TCP, which is TCP UDP port, which is for DNS, or bind, as it were. And it also has a few other UDP ports. They don't show up, as a TCP. Now you can combine scans, and that sometimes that'll work fine, depending on how much the target has in terms of ports and the network in between you and the target, where I can scan both at the same time. I can even combine, give me the reason, and I can also, so I can get that and give me a version at the same time. So I'm just adding all the switches I have shown you so far, and I can just run a full scan to see how it comes out. This may take a minute. Yeah. Now, granted, I have no firewall in between myself and the target, so it's scanning quite well. Over the internet, you could be blocked of trying to do something like this because ISPs may block you when you're on a local LAN. It's pretty, as long as the IDS or IPS doesn't detect you, you should be able to scan. It does. Most IPS and IDSs do detect scans like this. So it's running the scan, and it could take a few minutes to really run this scan because I've asked it to do a lot. So we'll see if it comes back. One more time. It's still doing its evaluation. And I'm going to, let's see. It's got about, this is where it gets a little bit of a challenge. The more you ask it to do, the more it needs to evaluate. So let's see if this comes back okay. If not, I can do a magic and make it all come out by pausing and restarting when it's finished. Let's see. See how quickly. Right now it's probably trying to find versions. Yeah, that's what it's doing. So in order to make this go a little bit faster for you, I'm going to do our little trick. I'm just going to pause for 1 second. Oh, nope, I got it. Never mind. Okay, I thought I needed to pause. But it did do the scan. It wasn't bad. I thought it would take. It took 101 seconds. But you can see now I can do all of it in one big scan. Okay, it gives me the bind, it gives me also UDP side, so you can do it all in one big scan. So Nmap is a very effective tool. I've shown you some of the aspects of it. There is much more you can do with it, but it's key to understanding to discover when you're trying to actively footprint or actively scan a target, to know exactly what's happening. And this tool will give you a lot of information that you can further research any kind of vulnerabilities you may have. Thank you.